Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our meeting for Tuesday, July the 1st. Ms. Hilberg, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Councilman De La Garza?
I am present.
Councilman Kidder?
Here.
Councilwoman Butler is in attendance. Councilwoman Scott?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Young?
Here.
Councilman Lofgren?
Here.
And Mayor Crocker.
Here, if you would, please stand and join me for the pledges, followed by a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated. Again, welcome everyone. Happy July. It's day one, and here we go. So we will jump right into our meeting agenda, and we'll start with item B1, announcements and reminders. Mr. Garza, good evening. Do you have anything for us?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do have several announcements for you this evening, so please bear with me. First off, I want to remind the public and you that all non-emergency city offices will be closed on Friday, July 4th in observance of Independence Day. Offices, or AKA 4th of July, right? Offices will reopen at 8 a.m. on Monday, July 7th. Trash, yard waste, and recycling scheduled for Friday will be collected as usual. The Victoria Public Library will be closed on July 4th and reopen at 9 a.m. on Saturday, July 5th. On behalf of Municipal Court, we want to remind the public that the Child Safety Committee will host an application success workshop to help nonprofit organizations interested in applying for a Child Safety Fund grant. The workshop will be held on Wednesday, July 2nd at 11 a.m. in the Economic Development Conference Room at 700 Main Center, Suite 104. On behalf of the Parks Department, we want to invite everyone out to the 4th of July Blast-Off presented by Del Papa Distributing this Friday, July 4th at the Victoria Community Center grounds, beginning at 3:30 p.m. Activities include a car show, cornhole tournament, inflatables, food trucks, and live music, with the fireworks show beginning at 9:30 p.m. To participate in the car show or cornhole tournament, please visit victoriatx.gov/registration before July 2nd.
Mr. Garza, did
Yes,
you
ma'am.
say the community center grounds?
Yes,
So that's different than it was last year?
yes.
Okay. Just trying to make that clear to anybody.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. We want to actually try and be consistent, be better at it at least. And we received a lot of feedback, that people liked having it at the community center. So in any case, in addition, on behalf of CVB, we are accepting applications from organizations seeking hotel occupancy tax funds for events and programs that bring overnight visitors to Victoria, including arts, historical, and sporting events. Information sessions covering the Hot Funds application and evaluation process will be held starting Thursday, July 3rd at noon, and July 8th, 14th, and 17th. Attendance at an information session is included in the scoring process, so we encourage everybody to make the effort to attend. Application forms and information can be found at victoriatx.gov/hotfunds and are due by midnight on July 31st. To Joel, J. Novosad at victoriatx.gov. He put his whole email in here. On behalf of the Communications Department, we hope you saw the latest episode of the City's Town Talk podcast is now available on YouTube and Spotify. In this episode, Communications Director Ashley Strevel and her team share some of the things that they were doing during the June 12th rainstorm, from sending emergency alerts to pushing a resident's car out of a flooded street. Waterway to start the day. Plus, the communications team discusses drought restrictions, Tejas Fest, and the upcoming community center project. And so we hope you can tune in. I'm getting better at reading these, so you're welcome. In any case, those are all the announcements that I have for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. We'll jump into item B2. I believe our first item under that is the KBB July Beautification Award. Ms. Euchre. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we are here to honor our July Beautification Award winner. And I have to say, this one has been a long time coming. Our winner for this July is Town Square Media, and they. I go there all the time to announce every month our Beautification Award winners, and they are super excited and always been excited about this program. And since Melissa Rivera has come back as market president, it has fired everyone up, and their little beds in front, their little flower pots look amazing, and they've kept them looking great. It's one of those examples of a small space, not a lot of green space, that they make look really great. And if you know where they are, they're kind of tucked back off North Star Drive, but it really looks fabulous, and it really makes the place pop. And so they are award winner this July. They are live and local. If you don't know, their radio stations are Q92, Kix 108, Club Tejano, and Jack FM. And I am pleased to bring up Melissa Rivera, our market president for Town Square Media, and Alex Salinas, also known as Pooks.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. We just want to say thank you. This took a lot by Melissa, mostly. She's our green thumb. It is a small area, but mighty. Okay, so it is small but mighty area. It looks beautiful. We were so excited. That's me jumping in the air. That is a physical representation of how excited we are of doing this. But Melissa is the true green thumb, so I'll pass this over to her. She's the one keeping it all alive.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Christy and the team and the City of Victoria for always going around and making sure our community is looking amazing, clean, and just making it beautiful. Greatly appreciate her and her team. We enjoy when Christy comes to the radio station every month. I always keep my fingers crossed, praying that we're going to win for the past 12 months, and we finally won. And when Christy did mention live and local, I just also want to bring to everyone's attention, not only are we a radio station and a digital marketing company, we also give back to the community all the time and do live events. And speaking of live events, we actually have our second annual music festival coming up. Last year, it was known as Red Dirt Music Festival. And then this year, we decided to change it to Crossroads Barbecue and Brew Music Festival to represent how all of our stations cover the Crossroads area. And that's happening November 8th in downtown Victoria. And we have Braxton Keith headlining. So we hope that all of you come out and support our live event this year. And thank you again for letting us win finally.
Congratulations. All right, moving on then. Item B2B is a Parks and Recreation Month proclamation. And Ms. Lacy, can you give the assist on this one for me, please?
Yes, sir. I'm no April, but I'll do my best. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Victoria, Texas, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, and many other activities designated to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. Whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas Victoria, Texas recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Crocker, Mayor of the City of Victoria, Texas, do hereby proclaim July 2025 as Parks and Recreation Month.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. City Manager Elijah Ramos, he is our Recreation Coordinator who will be accepting our proclamation today.
Mayor Crocker, City Council members, City Manager Garza. Build together, play together, 40 years of Parks and Recreation Month. Launched in 1985, this year marks the 40th anniversary of Park and Recreation Month. Each July, we celebrate park and recreation professionals and how they improve the lives of tens of millions of people, making a lasting impact in communities across the country. Parks and recreation programs are essential to community health and well-being and help cultivate lifelong friendships, memories, and family bonds that people hold dear decades later. Together, we're building and maintaining sustainable parks and green spaces for current and future generations. Together, we're building thriving communities focused on health and well-being. Together, we're building high-quality programs and spaces accessible and inclusive for all. Together, we help people play and connect through yoga, art classes, picnics, and more. This year's theme, Build Together, Play Together, reminds us of all the contributions of more than 160,000 full-time park and recreation professionals, along with hundreds of thousands of part-time and seasonal workers and volunteers who maintain our country's close to home parks. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Garza, do you have any other public and employee recognitions this evening?
I do, Mayor. I have a few.
Great.
I want to, that was sarcastic, right? No, I'm just kidding. But I
Always like it when we recognize our employees. That's great.
Yeah. I want to recognize our communications department. We always talk about it being an award-winning department, and this year is no different. They recently earned 2 statewide awards from the Texas Association of Municipal Information Officers for its multimedia productions, highlighting city initiatives and the Victoria community. Awards of excellence were earned in the following categories. Multimedia, other category, for Town Talk, our city's podcast, which I hope we can all agree has been a tremendous asset to our community. Additionally, an award in the special or one-time program category for the cinematic trailer entitled Past, Present, Future, a reflection of Victoria's 200 years. I hope you remember that video that was released at the Bicentennial Ball that we began to show shortly thereafter. It was just a very chilling video. And so kudos to the team, to Ashley, Sam, AJ, George, Alvesa. It's truly a team effort under Ashley's leadership. And so thank you all so much for your continued work, and congratulations. Additionally, I want to recognize Daniel Williams, our Economic Development Director. Derek and I had the honor of being with her at the Texas City Management Association conference just last week, where she was awarded the Barney L. Knight Texas CPM Scholarship. That's for the Certified Public Manager Program through the Texas City Management Association. This annual scholarship is awarded to a member of TCMA and provides a full tuition scholarship to the Texas CPM program, which is sponsored and put on by the William P. Hobby Center for Public Service at Texas State University in San Marcos. Danielle is scheduled to complete this program in spring of 2026. And so we, of course, always recognize our dedicated employees as they continue to pursue their professional development and educational pursuits. And so Danielle, thank you so much for representing that and continuing to do that as well. So thank you. And lastly, this one's a little bittersweet for me, but so bear with me as I get through this one. I had a hard time jotting some notes, but many of you know that Derek Farrell, our Assistant City Manager, will be leaving our organization this month. This is his last in-person City Council meeting. He'll be joining us at the second meeting virtually for one of the items, but I want to convey a few words and also put him on the spot for a few minutes. But many of you know that Derek has been with us for a little over 5.5 years. Started in January of 2020. I've known Derek for a long period of time. Personal friend as well. Has been a huge asset to our organization. And so it's bittersweet to see him go. Some of the more prominent things he has been involved with, you may recall the broadband initiative that he helped spearhead. Of course, right now, it's the public safety headquarter building that everybody's seen, right? That's very public things that he's been involved with. But I would be remiss if I didn't express the true value that he has brought to me and my administration is truly just being that number 2. Recently, there was an article that the International City Management Association put out highlighting the critical role of a deputy or assistant city manager. And I've always struggled to articulate it. And staff might recall me constantly saying that, you know, I don't have the time, I don't have the time, I don't have the time. And this article does a really good job of articulating just the reality of this dynamic between city manager and assistant, because city managers typically don't have the time to maybe be as available, to mentor, to lead, to listen, to provide guidance to directors to the extent that an ACM would. And I know that Derek has done that. And also just represented our organization very well. He stepped in as my number two when I'm out of the office. There's been several emergency management type of situations where he's represented me and the city in the Emergency Operations Center. And so it's a big loss to my administration to lose Derek, who I truly do see as my number two and have viewed him as my number two since day one. And in case you're wondering, I asked him if it was okay for me to say, but he will be leaving to become the associate professor of the practice and the Randy Sims Endowed Chair for the City and County Governance Program at the Bush School with Texas A&M. So he's shifting gears, right, and going from practicing to helping prepare the next generation of local government leaders. And so, Derek, thank you so much for your 5.5 years with me and with the city of Victoria. You're going to be missed. Obviously, he's still going to be around this month, but this is his last in-person council meeting, and so I just wanted to say thank you for all your work and dedication to us. So thank you so much.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Jesus, and thank you all for the last 5.5 years of letting me grow and develop and help wherever I could. I've been grateful for the city staff and for the community that my family and I have had the luxury of enjoying through all that time. We will truly miss all of you, and we will miss Victoria. It has become a home to us, and I know that you are all in great hands with the city staff that are here, but I also hope that through my new role, I get to continue being a resource to you, to the city staff, and to the community, wherever you think I might be able to help. I'm forever grateful for you and for this community and for Jesus and the opportunity that he's given me over these last few years, and I hope that you found as much value in it as I have. So thank you.
Thanks, Derek. That's all I have for this evening, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Items from council. Does anyone have anything this evening? Seeing none, then I will move on to citizens' communication. I have 2 cards. Card number 1 is Steve Moses. Welcome, Mr. Moses.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't want to be here, but I'm going to try one more time. The city council directly appoints and can remove the city manager or vote to terminate his position. The city council has the authority to terminate both the police chief and the city manager as they are hired and fired by the council. They have the sole authority to hire and fire both. The chief reports to the city officials. The mayor can indirectly fire a police officer. Back in 2021, Officer Swanson and Officer Sepulveda obstructed justice at my home. Both Sergeant Swanson and Officer Sepulveda could have been sued by a citizen for infliction of emotional distress. Their actions were reckless and intentional and caused emotional injury, and they caused emotional distress through a negligent act. 5 complaints have been filed against Sergeant Swanson and Jerry Sepulveda to Lieutenant of Internal Affairs doing nothing, and I was lied to. Now, Sepulveda is retired. I have never received a disposition of my complaints against Sergeant Swanson, and Jerry Sepulveda in almost 4 years. Nothing but a lot of lies from the police department. Sergeant Swanson was sustained for his action of signing in a female police officer's name to a roll sheet, which she never attended a police conference in Katy, Texas in 2018. He tried to explain why he signed her name as being absent for that police conference. A complaint was lodged against Swanson and his female counterpart, but it was sustained by Chief of Police Craig, and the allegation was true, and the action of Swanson was inconsistent with VPT policy. Yet on August 26, 2021, I called the VPT to remove my wife's daughter and her husband from abducting my wife. They were abducting my wife, and both the daughter and her husband stole all of my wife's personal property, her address, her clothes, purse, cell phone, personal, everything she had, all, and went throughout her home without my permission. These two incompetent policemen watched and videotaped the entire incident, but stood and did nothing. These two incompetent policemen caused the wrongful death of my sick wife, and I will not let me talk to my wife or hold my wife, keep my wife from leaving. Last thing I want to say is Sepulveda and Swanson should have been terminated for causing my wife's death, but in 4 years not have happened to either of them. This case is almost gone national, and it is going national. This case is called now the Chuck Young, George Floyd case, civil case of Victoria, Texas. And I want to thank the members of the City Council. I do have a lot of respect for you. I don't want to be here, but I wish you had enough empathy to know if this happened to you, how you would handle it instead of just sitting there. It's been a lot of emotional distress for me, 4 years of it. We would have been married 19 years now, but the last 4 have been hell for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moses. And then the second card I have is from Michael Vonderau. You are here, you moved on me. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Michael Bondro. I live at 2107 North Bend, Jordan. I want to thank the Victoria Parks and Recreation for coming to Queen City Park Sunday morning because someone trashed the whole Queen City Park last weekend, and Queen City Park and Christ Kitchen. And I know code enforcement came Monday, check it into it. I wish the police could make more rounds at Queen City Park and Christ Kitchen, because there's like 12 loose dogs, big dogs too, with no leash on, no rabies shot, and they continue to be there. And so far, no one's doing anything. And I don't know why they won't enforce the laws, at Queen City Park and Christ Kitchen, and why these dogs are allowed just to roam free, and the dog owners have no repercussion. They're just sitting there and no one's doing nothing. And, someone got bit, they could catch rabies and stuff, but no one's helping. And also want to thank the legal team because of them taking the trailer park owner to court. The trailer park is being concrete. The whole park is being concrete, and I want to thank Davila Paving, and actually they're doing it right this time, by the spec and by the code, and I appreciate it, because without the city council and code enforcement and public works, I think the trailer park owner would have just turned a blind eye, and it's hard for him when he only has 80 million in investments, and only has 17 trailer parks. It's hard to, he's probably got to save some money to buy some more trailer parks. Maybe he can be a billionaire like the other trailer park owners, And also, I would like to see some lighting put up at the trailer park. There's no lighting up hardly, other than at the very end. And this has been going on for years and years. And on trailer 29, it really needs to be dilapidated. And also, there's vandalism, and the police document it. There's a big penis on a garage and stuff. And I would like to see Liberty Real Estate Partners take care of it, because they're the ones that manage it. And I would like for them to tell the trailer park owner that there was a SWAT team raid, and he is in prison, got 5 years. Thanks, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Bondo. Moving on with the agenda then, there are no items of public hearings. We have a consent agenda. Ms. Hilbert, would you like me to read that? You're
No,
good?
I got it. Thank
Okay, thank you.
Adoption of minutes of the regular meeting held on June 17th, 2025. Item D2 is the ordinance providing for the imposition and levy of an additional hotel occupancy tax equal to 2% for a venue project approved by the voters at the City of Victoria, Texas on May 3rd, 2025, and consisting of an expansion and renovation, maintenance, and improvements of the Victoria Community Center, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8, Article 3, Hotel and Motel Occupancy Tax, Section 8-32, and containing other provisions incident and related to the purpose of the ordinance. This item is on second and third reading. Item D3 is a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with DeWitt County for the use of City of Victoria's public safety radio system. Item D4 is a resolution granting a letter of approval for Sacred Heart EMS Incorporated as an emergency medical services provider. Item D5 is a resolution approving the annual NFPA firefighter medical assessment and physical contract to LifeScan Wellness Centers in the amount not to exceed $77,000. Item D6 is a resolution awarding the Bronson Park Sidewalk Improvements Project to Keith Staff, DBA Staff Concrete Construction, in the amount of $90,795. Item D7 is a resolution awarding the contract for the demolition of the Riverside Park Building Foundation to Coastal Bend Demolition Incorporated in the amount of $162,555. And item D8 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of dispatch consoles for the public safety headquarters from Exhibix Systems Incorporated for amount not to exceed $120,959.
Thank you, Ms. Hilbert. Do I have a motion with respect to the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Moving on then to action items, we'll begin with item E1.
Item E1 is a resolution awarding the Vine Street Rehabilitation Project to CK Newberry LLC in the amount of $1,485,970.
Good evening, Mr. Shiblik.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight, I'm going to ask you to consider award of the contract for the Vine Street Rehabilitation Project. This project will be from Red River all the way to Mockingbird Street, from Red River to McWright or Magnolia Street, depends on which side of the road you're looking at. We are going to just do a rehabilitation with an overlay of hot mix asphalt. North of McWright to Mockingbird, we're going to do a full depth reconstruction of the pavement. The portion of Vine Street south of McWright is in much better shape than the portion to the north of it. I've heard comments from residents here about the roller coaster effect on the portion to the north. So we're going to address that. Our full depth reconstruction is going to be excavation of the existing base material down to the subgrade, lime stabilization of that subgrade, application of a geogrid, a limestone base, prime coat and seal coat, and then 1.5 inches of hot mix overlay. I've already described that we're going to do the 1.5 inches hot mix on the portion south of McWright to Red River. We received 3 bids for this project from CK Newberry of Carn City, Lester Construction of Port Lavaca, and Clark Construction of Texas here in Victoria. The low bidder was CK Newberry, and I'd ask council to award that contract to them.
Good. Any questions on this project?
I do.
What other projects has CK Newberry done in town?
Currently, CK Newberry is under contract for our 2025 mill and overlay project.
Right.
And
I have a question also.
Yes.
The reconstruction part, what's the time frame on getting that started and finished?
I can't answer that right now.
Okay.
We'll have to visit with the contractor in that regard as to when they plan on starting, and then what their time frame is to complete that work.
Okay, and while that construction is going on, it's going to be a completely, there's no way to drive on the street. It's a complete detour. Is that
We haven't discussed that with them. They may be able to work one half of the street, leave one-way traffic. At a minimum, they will only do sections of the street at the time, that they excavate it, compact it, bring in the base. That way then traffic can move across the road as they move to another section. But I will talk to them about leaving one lane of traffic in one direction.
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Carey, I think the bid from CK Newberry contemplated completion within 90 days after they start. I guess the question is, when are they going to get
When are they
to
gonna-
start the
yes.
project? Right, got it, okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Shiblik. Do I have any motions with respect to item E1?
Yeah, move to approve item E1.
I second it.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this item? All in
Long
favor,
overdue.
say aye.
Aye.
Long overdue. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, E1 passes, and yes, you're right, Dr. Young, long overdue. Glad to see it happening, so. Thank you, Mr. Shiblik. Let's move on then to item E2.
Item E2 is a resolution approving the terminating the agreement to purchase furniture for the public safety headquarters from Spencer and Company in the amount not to exceed $799,742.
Welcome, Mr. Farrell. You're not done yet, I see.
Not done.
All right, perfect, perfect.
So I'm gonna give you one presentation for the next two items, so this one and the following.
Look at the efficiency.
Hey, we're getting better at this. Only took 5.5 years. So real quickly, you in May approved a furniture allocation for the public safety headquarters. That furniture allocation is divided into three parts. The first is general furniture, desk, tables, chairs, all the things that go throughout the building. Second is dispatch consoles. Those are specific desks designed to hold multiple monitors, keys, microphones, all the things that dispatchers use throughout their day. And then dispatch seating, given the duration of time for which those people have to sit and have to remain in one place, they tend to get some specialized office chairs that provide a little better ergonomic seat support, a little better seating support, and other features that make their jobs bearable.
Surround sound.
Massagers, heated, all the things. No, they're just really good office chairs. So what that allocation looked like was $799,742 to Spencer and Company out of Dallas. That divides up, when we bid that project, bid packages 1 through 4 are the items that are essential to work in the public safety headquarters. Those are desk, conference tables, the things that go in there, lobby seating, all of those things, right? Alternates 1 through 12 are sort of the nice to have, and turned out they were affordable within our project budget, right? And then the dispatch console price is with Zybex Systems. That's bid, and you just approve that resolution through your consent agenda, and I'll explain that in a moment. But that's bid through a purchasing cooperative. Same with Concept Seatings, but the price for that is underneath the authorization level needed for Jesus or I on his behalf just to be able to sign it. So when I put this to you in May 6th, I incorrectly understood Spencer and Company to be the broker for the Zybex and the Concept Seating purchase, right? So we've pulled that out separately from the bid. Zybex Systems is their own purchase. They'll do their own invoicing, everything else. They match the existing desk. In dispatch, there will be 10 consoles. 5 of them will be new, 5 of them will be the existing consoles. So these will match and have the same features and same plug and play technology, right? The consoles and the purchase of the new consoles is going to be reimbursed by the Golden Crescent Regional Planning Commission, along with much of the dispatch, the generator, the wiring, all of the equipment needed to maintain 911 services in that facility. So it's a purchase separate and apart from Spencer. So really, we only look at the 662, 460 total, right? When we evaluated the packages, we only evaluated based on bid packages 1 through 4. Those are the only items that we scored in comparison, because the alternates were sort of the nice to have. Bid packages 1 to 4, what we had to have. Now, on May 30th, Spencer and Company realized an error in their bid. They found 6 items in their spreadsheet that they used to total up their bid that made them off by about a total of 115,000. So they send an updated invoice that we could not pay because it wasn't consistent with the bid structure. With that, we've had conversations about, can you hold your original bid? They can't with their company without losing money for the company. So we went back to the invoice and we looked at the problem. So their bid should have been 703,867 for the bid packages 1 through 4, making their total 778, still below that 799. But remember that 799 includes the dispatch items that should not have been included in that piece. So to resolve this issue, the first item that you'll be asked to vote on tonight is terminating the agreement with Spencer and Company. They're aware of the item. They simply can't go back without losing money. It's just a business decision for them. Next, we'll ask that you authorize us to pursue an agreement with Blue Box LLC, a company out of McKinney, Texas. Now, the bid prices were locked for 120 days. That expired June 13th. But in putting all of this together, Blue Box has agreed to honor their original bid outside of that, beyond that 120 days. And so the resolution that we'll ask you to authorize is for their original bid price. And then the separate resolutions are authorization for the dispatch items that should have been separated out, which is one was in your consent item, the other doesn't. The other authorization is at our level. So what that looks like then in a resolved solution is separating the dispatch items. Blue Box comes to a total of 715,343 with their original 679,983 on their bid packages. And then they bid a few of the alternates, but not all, at 35,360. The other alternates we can negotiate or work through separately. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have for me, but one other thing I'd like to do prior to the next item, Reed Rushop with Blue Box has made the trip in from Austin today to be here, and after I've answered your questions, I'd like to give him the opportunity to tell you some things he told me that I didn't learn till just today about why this project's really important to him and to his company. So, what questions can I answer for you?
And okay, one of us will jump in. And I'm not sure if this was entirely clear. The reason that staff reached out to Blue Box to see if they would honor their original bid is they were the second lowest bidder when originally scored. So that's the reason that we went back to that company when we discovered the issue with the price for Spencer and Company.
Going on apples to apples, they would have been the lowest bid.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, the key phrase purchasing makes us say is next lowest responsive bidder. So that's the phrase.
Any questions for Mr. Farrell on this?
All right. If you'll give me a second, I'll invite Reed Rushop up to introduce himself.
Welcome, Mr. Rushop.
Thank you so much. Hi, Mayor, City Council. As discussed, my company specializes in public sector work, and my grandfather, Derek, from his time at the city of McKinney, he recognized I have a very unique last name, which is Rushop, and there's a soccer complex named after my grandfather, Al Rushop, who was the city. He was mayor in the late 70s. But why this is important to not only my company, but to me, is that my grandfather is actually from Victoria, Texas. And so when this opportunity came up, we were both excited to support another municipal project, but also my grandfather from this time. So that's why it's dear to me, and we're committed to honoring our price and delivering a great product for you guys too. So.
Well, great.
Thanks so much.
Look forward to it.
Very good. Yeah, thanks for coming down. We appreciate it. You know, nothing like coincidence, and hey,
Exactly right. Yeah.
the low bid's the low bid, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Very good. Well, thank you. Any questions? All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right. If there's no other questions then on this item, then we'll take up first item E2, which is the resolution terminating the agreement with Spencer and Company. Do I have a motion with respect to that item?
I move we adopt E2.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, E2 passes. And then let me call up item E3.
Item E3 is a resolution approving or authorizing the purchase of furniture at the Public Safety Headquarters from Blue Box LLC in the amount not to exceed $715,344.
Thank you, Ms. Hilbert. Any motions with respect to item E3?
I move we adopt E3.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. E3 passes, and thank you again for being here. We look forward to working with you guys. All right, we then jump into city manager reports. Mr. Garza, what do you have for us this evening?
Well, as I mentioned on Friday at our budget workshop, and as promised today, we'll take a deeper dive into the proposed CIP, and David will walk us through that. I can help pass that out.
I'll begin tonight by providing an update on our 2025 CIP projects. Our Vine Street Rehabilitation Project, we awarded that earlier this evening. Our Bon Air paving and drainage improvements. Originally, we were going to bid Phase 1 earlier this year. When we received the plans and specifications, if we would have bid them there, we would not have been able to do the construction of Loma Vista and Azalea around Crane Elementary during this summer now. So we decided to postpone that. We will be receiving the completed plans for Phase 2 later this year. We will combine those two, bid them as one project. Hopefully, we'll get some better unit prices based upon the scale of the project. And then we should be able to get that work done around the elementary in the summer of 2026. They will not wait until then to start. They will just be working on some of the other streets first. Vine Street, Wagner Way, Lingo Lane, and Magruder. Vine Street and Wagner Way have already been reclaimed and seal coated, and we're a change order right now to our 2025 residential street maintenance project to reclaim and seal coat and onyx, Lingo Lane and Magruder. So from Country Club Lane all the way to Main Street will be essentially rebuilt streets. The I-69 corridor utilities, just today we received 10 exhibits for the easements with survey plats and meets and bounds descriptions that we sent to the right-of-way company. They will be preparing some the deeds, and they will be coming back to us with the proposed offer letters that they want to give to these property owners. We'll review that and approve that before they do that. Avenue D sanitary sewer rehabilitation. This was an area that was identified in the SSES that was performed last year. It's advertised right now. We will be receiving and opening bids on July the 16th. Anthony Road, Hanselman Road, sanitary sewer improvements. We have scheduled, that has been bid, is watered to Ramrod Utilities. We've got a pre-construction meeting scheduled for next week, Thursday. So they should be beginning construction shortly after that. The Northeast Water Street water line replacement. This is from the railroad up to basically Juan Lynn in front of the convent. We are waiting on a permit from Union Pacific to bore a water line underneath their railroad. We don't want to start anything until we know all the requirements from Union Pacific so that we can include those requirements in our bid, so all contractors will be able to consider that as far as their pricing.
How long has that submission for that permit been to them?
What I've been told is that they typically take 6 months.
That's probably accurate, yeah. Okay.
So this was submitted I believe it was in April that application was submitted, so I'm hoping we'll see something from them in October, maybe sooner, but I'm not holding my breath on that.
Fair enough. All right, thank you.
David, can you go
Yes,
back? Do any of you have any questions on any of the
sorry.
items on this slide? There's going to be a lot thrown out at you as part of the city manager report, so I want to make sure that we can pause throughout and see if you have any questions.
Map of the I-69 corridor, what part's going to be done? I mean, you can tell me, but I probably wouldn't know it unless I saw it on a map.
Well, we have the original map that we used when we hired the company, which basically does take you from 185 basically all the way to just shy of Telfner.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
A regional wastewater treatment plant, headworks, and screening facility. This is currently under design, anticipating to be bid and constructed in fiscal year +26. Lone Tree Acres Street and Drainage Project. This is one of the CDBG MIT projects. It is designed. We are waiting on an approval of the application, basically approval of the projects from the GLO. The same with the water SCADA system and the wastewater SCADA system. So we know that they will not be constructed during fiscal year '25. These were postponed and moved to fiscal year '26 as part of that CIP plan. Riverside Park Boat Ramp and Kayak Takeout Point. The engineering design has begun. There's been a number of meetings and conversations regarding the design of this. In fact, we've got one scheduled next week with some of the kayak people to get their input on the type of facility for the kayak takeout point. Children's Park Splash Pad, for design for that facility. We're in the process of drafting that contract. Once that is completed, we will submit that, send that back to the architect for his execution, and then we'll get the city to execute it, and we'll begin design on that. Citywide street lighting projects. This summer, I have 3 interns working in the engineering department. I have tasked them with going around taking the report that we got from Tanco that was prepared, I believe it was last year, and they've identified, located, and identified on a map each one of these locations that will either need a new light on an existing pole, need a new pole, and also areas that need to be trimmed. Trees need to be trimmed because they're encroaching upon existing lights or poles. I'm going to be sending that to AEP for them to give us a price to install these new lights. This area that we're concentrating on right now is on the southern part of town. We're going to start at the south and just work our way to the north. Because as we get to further to the north, we start getting out of AEP's jurisdiction area and becomes Victoria Electric. So I'd like to try and we'll handle everything over the next couple of years through AEP's service area, and then we'll go into Victoria Electric. Any questions on this? Nope. All right. Okay, now I'll give you an overview of our proposed projects for the '26 through fiscal year '28 window. Through the years '26 through '28, we are anticipating spending an overall $127.66 million. $79 million of that will be in fiscal year '26, with $25 million in fiscal year '27 and $23.38 million in fiscal year '28. In '26, the primary reason for that large expenditure is going to be an almost $31 million expended on the community center renovation and expansion. Now I'll give you some, identify the individual projects we're looking at for fiscal year '26. Our residential streets that we are anticipating to either seal coat, rework, to whatever it's going to take to bring them up to standards. Terra Vista subdivision, Salem Crossing subdivision, Benchmark Alleyway. These are all in the original plan that was submitted to you last year. Sam Houston Heights, Salem Crossing subdivision, Power Street west to William, Power Street, Avenue C to Avenue D, West Commercial Street, Moody to End, Bridge Street from Convent to Water, Bottom Street from South Street to city limits, Church Street from Main to William, and Liberty Street from Church to Power. The thoroughfare projects that we are proposing are to mill and overlay Ball Airport Road from Millette to Glasgow, Glasgow Street from Simpson Road to Stonegate Drive, or essentially city limits, Edinburgh Street from Joplin to Navarro, Wagner Way, Lingo Lane, and Magruder Drive, Guy Grant Road, starting the design from Salem to Mockingbird. For those improvements, we would mill and overlay Maori Lane between John Stockbauer to Sam Houston. And we would begin the design on North Street, Phase 3A and 3B, which extends from Lawrence Street to Ben Jordan Street. Again, we'd had some mill and overlay on Ben Jordan to Ben Wilson, on Juan Lynn from Ben Jordan to Ben Wilson, on Ben Jordan Street from Lawrence Street to Bottom Street, Lone Tree Road from Lone Tree Creek to Delmar, and Hanselman Road from Highway 59 to Delmar Drive. Utility projects that were originally proposed were Sycamore and Willow Street waterline replacement, Mockingbird sanitary sewer line replacement, Airline Road sanitary sewer replacement, regional wastewater treatment plant headwork screening facility. And other projects were the citywide street lighting project, Riverside boat ramp, kayak and takeout project, and the Children's Park splash pad construction. We'll be revising those original the projects to, as described before, below here. Our residential street project, we are going to postpone Commercial Street to fiscal year 28. There's a 16-inch water line that we will need to, we have in our plans to replace in fiscal year 27 and in Commercial Street, and that will need to be done before we build the street, and then we don't want to come back and then tear it up when it's after we do that. We will postpone the benchmark alleyway construction. Those funds that had been allocated for that, we will utilize them for the City of Victoria portion for the Northside Road Improvements Project. This is a city-county project. And we will also use some of the funds for the Pine Street Victoria Housing Finance Corporation project. We also plan to add Tonto Circle and Ramona Lane as a reclaim, seal, and onyx project. Bonaire Street reconstruction, as I said earlier, we're going to be combining Phase 1 and Phase 2 into one project. We anticipate bidding that October of this year. Sycamore and Willow Street waterline replacement. We plan on postponing this engineering design to fiscal year 26. It was originally set to design in fiscal year 25. And also then postpone the construction of that project to fiscal year 28. Our Airline Road sanitary sewer abandonment, we would like to move the construction of that project to fiscal year 28. Also, we plan on adding in an engineering design project for Martin Luther King Park improvements. Again, we are moving the Lone Tree Acres Street and Drainage Project, the Water SCADA Project, and the Wastewater SCADA Project, all those being the CDBG MIT projects. And we're adding in a community center renovation and expansion. This map shows you the projects that we will be including in our upcoming fiscal year 26 that we're recommending to you to adopt. Again, Terra Vista, Salem Crossing, Greenway Park, Sam Houston Heights, Bonaire Subdivision, Power Street, Lone Tree Acres, Power Avenue, Church Street, Bottom Street, Bridge Street, and Liberty Street.
One of the more common questions that we get from this list of streets, and I think one of you asked this question the last time we shared it, was Terra Vista, really? Isn't that a new subdivision? Well, that's 15 years, that was 15 years ago that subdivision started developing. And so as part of our ongoing maintenance, it's time and appropriate to do a seal coat on those streets to extend their life. So I just want to mention that some of these streets are not as new as people might think.
I have a question. A couple of these streets are very small, especially Power Avenue, Avenue C to Avenue D, and I guess Bridge Street, Convent to Water. What caused us, that's not the way we've been doing streets, so what caused us to pick those?
The Avenue C to Avenue D would have been included in this year's residential street project, but for two reasons, we need to pull it out and postpone it to next year. One is that the Avenue D sanitary sewer rehabilitation project that I talked about earlier, there's also from Avenue D to Avenue C, that sewer line that we're going to be rehabilitating with a pipe burst. Pipe bursting requires us to excavate down to the sanitary sewer main outside of the manholes. Well, these happen to fall out in the street. So if we were to repair the street this year, we'd be digging it up next year. So if we could postpone that work until after the utility work is completed, we won't have that patchwork in there. Also, these recent rains have shown us that there are some drainage issues on that particular block of street, and we'll need to give it some thought as to what we can do to remedy that. Because right now, there's no ditches. The water just kind of stacks up, goes out into the road, and then goes around the driveway. Well, if we don't do something about that drainage, I don't care what we do to fix that street, it won't last with the water doing that. So.
Okay.
So I think in that specific example, I think he's suggesting that that project would have been part of the larger project this year, but we're just delayed just that small section. I think where you're getting at, Jan, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is are we simply just relooking how we choose and how we reassess or assess, I should say, which streets, right, we're working on?
That may be part of, if we're in that area right now, I'm just not remembering that that's a project going on right now or has gone on recently.
Yeah, the rest of that is
The rest of that is part of this year. We're
part
doing
of this
from
year's
Johnson
residential
Street to
street
Avenue
program.
C,
Okay.
On Power.
Then absolutely, we don't want to fix something and dig it back up. I agree with that.
Yes.
But I will say that holistically speaking, even going back several years, we have tried to look at it a little bit more utilizing data, right? And just trying to figure out which streets need work, right? And because for a while there, you're right, you know, the residential street program was kind of, whether intentional or not, was just focused on redoing neighborhoods and taking them all at once. But you may recall 6 years ago or so ago, when we hired the company to do an assessment, it basically gave us a list of streets by block that were in bad shape or that were in shape that they could be salvaged to extend their life. And so I do think we've, over the last few years, and plan to continue to do this unless we receive different direction from you, is to look at a combination of, yes, trying to tackle, you know, residential neighborhoods, but also trying to tackle the blocks that the study and the data suggest need to be addressed.
Thank you.
The thoroughfare projects that we're proposing for 26 really haven't changed much. In fact, I don't see any changes. The Edinburgh Street, Joplin to Navarro, Ball Airport Road, Glasgow Street, Guy Grant, the design of those improvements, Maori Lane, Lone Tree Road, the design of the North Street Phase 3 segment between Ben Jordan and Ben Wilson, Juan Lynn Street, Southwest Ben Jordan, and Hanselman Road. All these were on the previous, that was a list that was approved last year. Our utility projects, we are moving the citywide wastewater and water system, SCADA systems, I should say, to 26. Those are CDBG MIT projects. Mockingbird sewer line replacement, we will be probably ready to advertise for bids shortly after the first of the fiscal year on that project. Again, my interns that I've had them working on some of these projects. They've been getting a lot of experience in this sort of thing, and it's really helped me out in terms of getting things done. I'm trying to get this.
Where on Mockingbird is the sewer project?
This is between Navarro and Lilac. There's a sewer line that it says replacement. It's actually going to be a rehabilitation. We're looking to go in there and do a pipe burst on that, so we don't have to dig up the entire street. Yes. Where we can, we like to try and do some of these trenchless methods of rehabilitation.
Well, because that street is really nice. It's glad it's a rehabilitation and not a.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes, sir. Design of the Sycamore Street and Willow Street water lines in that neighborhood will take place next year. And we should be ready to construct the regional wastewater treatment plant headwork screen. Other projects that we'll be looking at in 26, the boat ramp and kayak takeout project. The boat ramp is at the northern part of Riverside Park. The kayak takeout point right now, we're proposing it to be at the southern part of the park, around the river bend, just before you get to the Pump House Restaurant. It's somewhat near, my understanding, that's somewhat near where the takeout point is for the Texas Safari, I think, or for some race on the river. That's what I was told. I'll go with that. The Children's Park Playground and Splash Pad project, we should be ready to start construction at some point in fiscal year 26 on that project. Hopefully that then it would be ready in 27 to open up, if not sooner. Community center renovation and expansion, and our design of the Martin Luther King Park improvements. This slide is.
I hope you can see that.
If you can't see it there, this is on your handout. Because we figured that this might be a little difficult to read. The handout would be a little better, yes. Basically, this is a summation of all the projects that were originally proposed and whether they're going to stay as part of the 26 list, whether there are going to be any changes in that, any postponements, anything that maybe moved forward from a later year. And so.
I have a question about the SCADA project and Lone Tree Acres. It's money that we're supposed to get. What's the real hangup with those two projects? Because we have a time frame in which to use that money. I think it's 27 that we have to use.
The time frame's not going to really apply here, or doesn't start until we get project approval and there's a contract signed between the state of Texas and the city.
Why was it postponed? Because
currently they're still reviewing this project, and they keep coming up with
questions with follow-up, right?
Yes.
There's basically been a lot of back and forth between staff, our consultant, Ardura, that we hired to help manage this for us, and the GLO. They've had a lot of questions about just why are you doing it, where are you doing it. There's been several sit-downs. Without going into, I guess, the weeds of it or giving you specific examples, there's just been a lot of back and forth. But it's moving. But that's what's been driving it. I think specifically for SCADA, I think I could surmise the feedback and the back and forth in that the GLO has really put us in a position, which isn't a bad thing, to defend why we want to do these projects. Because this money's coming from a very, very specific, program. And so through our consultant, we've had to basically sell these projects to the GLO, and it's taken time and energy. We've had to re-engage some engineers. We've had to really put a lot of effort into basically convincing the GLO that these projects fall within the categories that they've outlined, and that's taken some time.
I would think that Lone Tree Acres would fall in all their categories.
Is flood mitigation? Yes.
Yes.
Well, do we have the easements to all for flood mitigation?
I'm happy to answer that question in executive session.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe we've already decided this, but Bon Air's got 2 phases. And we tend to phase things so that we can afford them, but we're bidding both of them together.
Yes, ma'am. So you may recall from my presentation on Friday suggesting that the COs that were planned to issue this year for the first phase were not issued. And so we're basically have extended that debt capacity into fiscal year 26 to be able to bid out the project at once and issue the COs for the quantity for both.
Okay.
And even though, and I don't know if this is part of your question, but even though, yes, it's being bid out altogether as one project, obviously, the project implementation aspect would have to be phased to prioritize the sections that are close to the school during the summer, right? And so there's still going to be a phased execution of the project, but it's going to be awarded all at once. And so that's why David mentioned that hopefully maybe that way we actually get better unit pricing, since, you know, things like mobilization, right, would only happen once.
Okay, thank you. Let's give it a try.
Any other questions?
David, before you proceed to fiscal year 27, I forgot to bring up and prompt you to talk about, and you don't have to go back in the slides, but one of the updates relevant to fiscal year 25, I think we need to talk about publicly, because I don't think we've talked about it publicly, which is associated with the Briggs Bridge and the impact that that's having on the project that was in this fiscal year's budget for Millette. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes. Okay. Originally this year, as part of our mill and overlay project, we were going to mill and overlay Millette from, all the way from Loop 463 up to Ball Airport Road. Figured we would try and do that before we started having all that traffic, not going down Briggs, but continuing down Millette. However, upon further considerations, we realized that there's going to be a lot of heavy truck traffic on that section of Millette between Loop and Briggs, bringing in a lot of field dirt to raise that bridge. So we're going to postpone the work on that segment until that bridge is complete and we know exactly what has been done to that road and what we will need to do to bring it up to our standards. I'd hate to spend a couple $100,000 doing a mill and overlay, and then those trucks just tear it up and we need to come back and do some more work to it.
And in addition to that, and more importantly, TxDOT, who is overseeing the bridge reconstruction, has delayed that project. And so originally, you may recall Ken, spearhead the acquisition of right-of-way that was needed from citizens and some other folks, right? There was kind of like a time crunch, it seemed. Well, that was because they were trying to get that bridge done this summer. However, that's been delayed basically the whole year, it sounds like. And so that also partially contributed to also delaying some of that work on Millette, because it just makes sense to wait until after the bridge is constructed.
So there's two ways to get to that bridge from opposite ends, obviously.
They will end up coming from both ways.
That was gonna be my question.
Once
Are
the
they gonna-
bridge comes
yeah.
out, they won't be able to cross it. And not to mention the fact that this new bridge is going to be 7 to 8 feet higher.
Okay.
So they're going to be bringing in a lot of trucks with a lot of field dirt.
Got it.
Any other questions on fiscal year 26? Okay, thank you. You can just go to fiscal year 27.
Just move on to
Yeah.
27? Okay. Okay. Our original residential streets that were proposed in 27 were for Bronson Terrace subdivision. That's just north of the college. Red River Heights, that's just to the east of the college. East Side Addition, and in Springwood Addition, we would look to work on 3 of the streets: Wild Rose, Summit View, and Park View. Our thoroughfare projects we're looking to pursue was going to be North Street Phase 3A, the paving and drainage. The utility work should have been done in fiscal year 26. This is the section between Lawrence Street and Avenue C that runs in front of Patty Welder. Just due to the timeline, how long that's going to take, this work will be ongoing during the school year. There's just no way to complete it, all of it, in a summer. So I'm just hopefully even the public is listening and they'll figure that out once we get there, but anyway. John Stockbauer Mill and Overlay, we were going to mill and overlay it's been mill and overlaid to Ben Jordan. So we're now going to take it from Ben Jordan to Mockingbird, and then the next section from Mockingbird all the way to Salem. That's what was proposed. Our utility projects we were proposing was replacing a 20-inch cast iron water line on Airline that was between Laurent Street and Ben Jordan. Replacing utilities as part of the Guy Grant road improvements. And the utilities on North Street, Phase 3A. We're also looking to replace a 16-inch cast iron water line that runs from Constitution, up Craig, west on Forest, north on Washington, and then west on Commercial Street. This was one reason why we moved the section of Commercial Street from Moody to the end to a later year for that work. We'd get this water line in first, then we'd work on that street. An I-9 manhole rehabilitation project that was identified in the SSES. And we would begin the design for the regional wastewater treatment plant grit removal structure. Now, this is separate and different from the headwork screen. While it does go at the front end of the plant, the headwork screen screens out rags and that sort of thing that come through. This grit removal structure is a way of either, there are different ways to do it. You can either spin it like a cyclone where any heavier grit, sand and stuff goes to the bottom, or it can just slow it down to where it won't stay suspended due to the water velocity and it'll just settle to the bottom. I'm not sure just which way they're going to go with that. We'll see what the engineer decides. We propose to revise the list of projects as shown here. We'd like to postpone the mill and overlay from Mockingbird to Salem to fiscal year 28. We'd like to move the replacement of the 20-inch cast iron line on Airline to fiscal year 29. Kind of in conjunction with the community center renovation and expansion, we're proposing to mill and overlay North Street from Ben Jordan to Ben Wilson. As this project is ongoing, we're going to redo sidewalks on the community center side. The community center renovation expansion project still be ongoing, I believe. The Riverside Multi-Use Trail. We're proposing to finally construct those trails during fiscal year 27. Briggs Boulevard Mill and Overlay, the bridge should be completed sometime in early fiscal year 27, and then we can do our mill and overlay after that. What I'd like to do on that is while they had the road completed, but just before they reopen it up, or the road just closed, I'm sorry, just before they open it up and they're doing final improvements to the bridge, that would be the time to come in and do the mill and overlay where we don't have to worry. Traffic's already been diverted and detoured, and we wouldn't have that to cause anybody any other interruptions after the bridge, that road opens up with the new bridge. Airline Road sewer line abandonment, that was moved from fiscal year 26. This project there's existing to the west of Laurent, the sewer line runs in backyard easements. It's hard to access. What we're proposing to do there is to relocate the sewer services. Actually, we'll have to reroute them most of them come out through the back side of the house, around through the side yard, and come out to the front to the existing sewer lines. That way we'll be able to access the sewer mains if we need them, if there's any blockages. Right now, we can't get a jet truck in there to try and jet out a blockage. You'd have to go through somebody's yard, take down fences and such. So that's why those backyard easements are such an issue. Our residential street projects are pretty much scattered from south side to the middle to the northwest side of town. Our thoroughfare streets, Briggs Boulevard, either side of the bridge. John Stockbauer will just do Ben Jordan to Mockingbird this year. We should be doing the paving and drainage work on North Street, Phase 3A. And we will add in the mill and overlay on North Street between Ben Jordan and Ben Wilson in front of the community center. Our utility projects, citywide, will be the I-9 manhole rehabilitation project. Guy Grant Utilities will be done in 27. The 16-inch water line on Constitution, Craig, Forest, Washington, and Commercial will be replaced. We will be replacing the utilities on North Street in front of Patty Welder. And the design on the regional wastewater treatment plant grit removal system will take place. Our other projects we'll be considering will be the Riverside Park multi-use trails. The exact routing of that we have not determined yet, so we just kind of highlighted the entire Riverside Park on this, and the community center renovation and expansion project completion. Again, you've got this sheet as part of your handout. This is just a summation of the various projects that we started out, original plan that was approved last year, and what our proposed adjustment to that plan is, adding new, postponing certain projects to a later year and such.
I have a question
Yes, ma'am.
about the airline, the water line replacement on airline, that iron pipe. So I'm sitting in 2025, and we have problems on the water lines on airline anyway. I'm not sure about this particular one, but we're moving it ahead quite a few years. Are we feeling like we'll probably make it?
Yes.
Okay.
This line is pretty deep, so it's not so much subject to ground movement, which can be a problem for cast iron water lines. They're not very flexible. The lines that are more shallow, as the ground shifts from wet to dry seasons, it can cause the pipe to shear. But when it's deeper, where it's a more constant moisture level, that's not as big an issue.
Okay, thank you for that.
Dave, I got a question. In regards to the North Street,
Yes, sir.
as we're doing a lot of the utilities before we're doing the roads, but between Ben Jordan and Ben Wilson, we're doing a mill and overlay. Are the utilities good underneath it?
We're going to, oh, go ahead.
The utilities will have to be replaced, but we're specifically recommending a mill and overlay, not a complete reconstruct. If you recall, the phasing of North Street is there's the section in front of Patty Welder, but that doesn't actually go all the way to Ben Jordan, sorry. And so there's another phase of complete reconstruction needed on North Street to get all the way to Ben Jordan. And so by the time we get to that, right, we're talking years down the line. In our mind, the investment in that mill and overlay for the section in front of the community center is worth it. We also don't know what might change, right? Priorities might change. Maybe we decide that we want to focus on North Street coming back the other way, going back downtown. We really haven't received and we really haven't pushed for, what comes after, we do the section in front of Patty Welder. And it'll be years before we get to any other section. So it's minimal investment from our standpoint to match the facility being new. I mentioned on Friday, the two biggest piece of feedback we received on the project was, hey, maybe don't issue as many COs for the project, and maybe you ought to do something about North Street. So our solutions to that is, decreasing the amount of COs for community center expansion, placing more pressure on the hot funds to cover some of that, right? We dropped that to basically a little 10 million, basically, and then doing a mill and overlay for North Street in front of the facility.
Thank you for that reasoning.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go and talk about our proposed fiscal year 28 projects. This will be the first time you will see, well, some of the projects may have been postponed from previous years, but this is the first time we're proposing an actual list of projects for fiscal year 28. We're looking to spend approximately $3.7 million on residential street projects. Julius Street, north and south, that's on either side of Hanselman. Owen Street, Cervantes, Levis, and Sertucci Road. All of these are off of Hanselman Road. Armory Drive, north of Mockingbird. Blue Ridge, Phase 1 and 2. This is Polk, Warren. Not sure, I did, drawing a blank right now on which streets it is. But this is subdivision, it's north of Crestwood, between Navarro and Laurent. We're hoping to come in and reclaim, seal, and onyx three of those streets as far as Phase 1 and Phase 2. We looked at that subdivision and tried to divide it up into phases to make it more palatable in terms of the cost of the construction. Right now, we've got estimates that each one of those phases could be constructed for approximately $1 million. Commercial Street, we'll go in and seal coat and onyx that street. Lake Forest subdivision, seal coat and onyx. Springwood Drive, we'll do a mill and overlay on that. Ridgeview and Creek Ridge Drive, we'll do a full reconstruction. Once those last three streets are done, that entire Springwood subdivision will all have been done within approximately 1 year, and all that pavement will have the same age. Right now, Springwood Drive was reconstructed several years ago. So if we were to not do anything to it, maybe we can just do maybe a seal coat on it. I don't know about that at this point. That's why I'm proposing a mill and overlay. But the asphalt would all be the same age and the same condition. You wouldn't have to worry about one being 5 or 6 years older than the other and always being that off. We can get that neighborhood, that subdivision on one schedule. We're proposing to spend $15 million on thoroughfare projects. We would mill and overlay John Stockbauer between Mockingbird and Salem. Airline Road from Navarro Street west to Main Street. We're proposing to do some of the streets around on Ben Wilson around the community center, starting at North Street, going south to Forest Street, and then from Forest all the way down to Port Lavaca Highway. And we want to pick up and go from North Street to Linda Drive, going north of there. This will be alongside the Stroman campus. That'll be about all we can afford with the funds that we have, unless we can find some more funding for that to continue that road. So maybe in 29, we can continue that Ben Wilson and take that all the way to Rio Grande Street. Right now, this year, we are milling and overlaying from Houston Highway to Rio Grande on Ben Wilson. That way we can have, that road will be in all good shape. North Street Phase 3B, that's from Avenue C to Ben Jordan. And the Guy Grant Street improvements. Utility improvements, we're looking at $4.7 million worth. North Street Phase 3B. The regional wastewater treatment plant grit removal structure, that's to be the construction of it. Actual construction of the Sycamore and Willow Street waterline replacements. And we'll begin the design on the Airline Road 20-inch water line replacement. These slides will kind of show you graphically where the proposed streets are that we're talking about for the residential. As you can see, this is the Levis, Sertucci, Cervantes, Julia Streets, north and south. These, like I said, these are all off of Hanselman Road, east of Delmar. Lake Forest subdivision. Armory Drive. And then Springwood Drive, Ridgeview, and Creekside. This will be the last portion of this subdivision. We will have previously reworked the streets in fiscal year 27, I believe it was. So like I said, all those streets will be about the same age. Commercial Street from Moody to End. And Blue Ridge subdivision here. You can see I've got it color-coded as to the 3 phases I've conceptualized as far as construction timing. And I believe that we can actually do phase 1 and phase 2 in this fiscal year 28. Plan to go in and reclaim and seal coat those streets. Probably we'll have to go in and do wholesale curb and gutter replacement so that it drains properly. A lot of that curb and gutter, some of it's been pulled up because it had rolled so bad. Other of it's still there. It is still rolled, or it has sunk and it's depressed. So we're gonna need to replace that curb and gutter to get good drainage, positive drainage to the inlets at the corners. John Stockbauer from Mockingbird to Salem, Airline from Maine to Navarro, and Ben Wilson, showing from beginning at the south end of Port Lavaca Highway up to Forest Street to North, and North Street up to Linda Drive. Our utility projects were...
Real quick, Nick, any
Yes, sir,
questions
Sorry.
on those? Keep in mind as we go through this, I'll give David a little breather, that, you know, we've gotten into the habit of doing this 3-year planning window, right? But ultimately, what you will be asked to approve as part of the fiscal year 26 budget is technically just the projects that are part of fiscal year 26. So just keep that in mind. We adopt the CIP, but it is a living, breathing document, right? Things can change, and sometimes they have to, as you've heard from David. Sometimes we just have to rearrange things. But I just want to make clear that ultimately what you will be approving in August would be just the fiscal year 26 projects. And what we're proposing for fiscal year 27 and 28 is just to give us an idea as to how that's looking in those years. And so we welcome feedback. You know, doesn't have to be tonight, but we welcome feedback on those outer years, because it's always better to adjust what we're doing when we're planning 2 years in advance, right? Versus trying to adjust in the moment. Finish strong, David.
All right, I'm gonna try to. Our utility projects we're proposing for 28, to the north side of the drawing, that's the Airline Road, 20-inch water line replacement. North Street, Phase 3B utilities, and then Sycamore and Willow Street water line, and a little kind of orange-brown dot along Highway 59. That's where the primary grit structure would be constructed at the regional wastewater treatment plant. Oh, I didn't know it did this.
At least it wasn't all the slides.
Yeah, I know. I thought I had all that turned off. These are all the projects we're proposing for fiscal year 28. On our comment section, we're indicating to you the projects that we have moved from prior years forward. And currently, we're proposing approximately a little over $23 million for capital improvements projects.
The only thing I'll verbalize is, I don't want to make you go back to it, but one of the early slides showed the total CIP cost for 26, right? And then 27, 28. You may or may not recall, but that's consistent with what Gilbert has presented to you about debt capacity recently. We are going to see this swing back to having somewhat of a normalized CIP, where we're intentionally trying to keep it at around $25 million every year, because we're running out of debt capacity. And so we want to be creative, and we can't sustain having these swings of, 70-something million dollar CIP 1 year, 94 million 2 years later. That's not sustainable for us because our tax base isn't growing, right? So we only have the money that we have. And so I just want to point that out, that what we're being shown tonight is consistent with the financial strategy that Gilbert has presented, that once we get to fiscal year 27, it's going to level out for a few years at around 25 million, which is what made it very difficult. You may recall, Ms. Scott, about doing the additional phases for Tanglewood, because trying to do that would take up, the entire amount of capacity that's available for CIP projects in those years. And so I just want to remind you of that.
As a follow-up to that, so we do a good job of planning ahead. We have a handle on the streets that we know we need to fix. But then when something new comes up, a lot of times the answer becomes, well, that's not in the CIP. So you both know I've got a specific single street in mind, but remind me again, what is our process to get something into the CIP? I know that staff does a great job, and I appreciate that, of, when it becomes urgent and we do some adjusting, but how do we feed more stuff into the CIP?
So I think it depends. It's one thing to suggest adding like a Tonto Circle as an example, which is a project that's only a few $100,000, right? And it's a different thing to suggest, incorporating a $15 million, complete reconstruct of a neighborhood, right? I mean, the scope of that is just completely different. And so, as I mentioned a few months ago, right, we welcome your suggestions, on streets, right? We attempted to incorporate, some of those into this planning window, and so hopefully you recognize some of those. But it's impossible to incorporate, everything, right? I think it's much easier to incorporate small projects like Tonto Drive or Circle or whatever it is, because we do see, fluctuations in the availability of cash, right? We might budget, I'm gonna make something up, might budget $4 million for the residential street program. It might come in at 3.5. So then we say, okay, you know what? Here's an opportunity to add a $250,000 project, right? And so I think it depends. If the intention is to basically develop a list of streets that are, low-hanging fruit streets, for lack of a better word, we can certainly develop a list like that. We've discussed setting up a list of low-hanging fruit streets that simply just necessitate a reclamation, because those are the most cost-effective. So it would be easy for us to plug those in when money's available. It would be much harder to incorporate complete neighborhoods. And so if what you're suggesting is how do you provide the feedback for the larger residential projects, then it would be through this setting, right? It would be, we showed you what we're suggesting be done in 28, and you can very easily as a group decide, you know what, we don't want to do those residential streets in 28, we rather do something else. But we have to show you something to spur conversation, right? So I hope that answers your question.
It does, and it's interesting that, what your comments about Springwood, that when we're done with this project or this plan, that then all the asphalt there will be the same age, which makes it easy to go back to the subdivision again. And yet on the other end of it is when we have to tackle an entire subdivision, that's too big of a bite. I realize that mill and overlay or seal coat is a lot less expensive than a rebuild. But it is sort of a council policy decision also. In the long distant past, council did just do a street at a time, and that became very cost prohibitive. And so they started doing full subdivisions, at least that's my understanding of it. And we're still doing that, and I think that's good. But by the same token, I can see how that ties us into they're ending up with some low-hanging fruit type streets that are part of a subdivision, that the subdivision's great, except for that street.
Yeah, and I think it'd be appropriate to suggest too that the cost of completely reconstructing streets has gone up exponentially, right? And so even just the cost factor alone, I mean, I don't have the stats, but just based off the bids that we've received, completely reconstructing a street now compared to 5 years ago has easily gone up 30% plus. And so it makes it a little bit harder to try and tackle complete neighborhoods just because of the cost piece too.
Well, that's
Which
particularly
which
based-
wouldn't have had been the case, maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, and particularly based on age and size and, some subdivisions, you can do an entire subdivision at 6 or 8 streets versus 25 or 30 on some others. I think, to your point, Mr. Garza, one example of kind of the reclamation project I think we did a couple years ago was Will Hurd Road.
Right.
Which, was one of those that was never going to get thrown in as part of a subdivision, but it's just kind of a standalone street that we did a reclamation project on it that was relatively inexpensive as compared to others. And, I think that was a great success. I like the concept, and I know we've kind of talked about it from time to time, but maybe we identify a list of, look, here's our top 10, here's our top 12, whatever kind of standalones that if we do have those funds that become available because a bid is lower than what we anticipated, that we kind of have a hit list, if you will, of, okay, here's maybe some individual streets that probably won't get caught up in a subdivision project, but we ought to go ahead and do them just because of the condition of them. So maybe that's kind of the standby list that says when we get money available, we're going to hit these individual streets.
Yeah, can you go back a few slides?
And I'm talking about from a reclamation, not necessarily, a larger project.
Yeah, but I think
or
that
rebuild.
same approach also, I'm trying to go back to the one that shows the dead-end streets there, the one on the left. So those streets on the left, right, would have never been addressed had we simply just stuck to doing complete neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Right? Now, these aren't necessarily just reclaims, but it's the same idea, right? That after so many years of just I shouldn't say just, but after years of, for the most part, prioritizing neighborhoods, right? You leave streets that aren't part of neighborhoods that might only have a handful of people living off of them. Nobody ever touches them, right? At the end of the day, we should have a CIP that's balanced, right? That contains streets like this, but also can go in and do a whole neighborhood like Lake Forest. Right? And so that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to better balance where we can do neighborhoods like Lake Forest, but we can also do these one-off streets that otherwise would have never gotten any love. So that's what we're trying to achieve now.
Yeah, and I think that's a good approach. Any other questions? I am glad to see Armory Drive on a list somewhere. And so, I know that's one
If you've
that,
got any recommendations on streets, please feel free to give them to me. I can develop cost estimates of what it's going to take. And then sometimes, as AC says, if we've got some extra funds from a project, we'll find one that will fit within that, dollar frame.
right. I think we just keep plugging away on what we can, and we appreciate the work that goes into that planning. Well done, and thank you for the information. Mr. Garza, are there any other city manager reports?
No, sir.
Okay, I understand we will have a brief executive session.
Yes,
So
5 minutes.
Why don't we take a 10-minute break, and we will be back here at 6:48.
The City Council will recess for executive session the first day of July 2025. Subject matter is as follows: Texas Government Code 551.087, 551.072, and 551.071.
Not Will Hurd.
We might not all be back.
I'm positive.
No, I don't think it was.